listening to It's Later Than You Think. Welcome to another edition of It's Later Than You Think. My name is Patrick, and today I'm here to talk to you about dry January. Now, before you roll your eyes or stop listening, please note that I am not going to talk your ear off about all the reasons you should avoid alcohol. That is not going to be happening here. If you've been listening, you are aware that I no longer consume alcohol. It has been 8 months, and I have no desire to drink alcohol again. But there are a few things I want to talk to you about just that have been in the news lately, and also talk about some resources that I've used that I think might be beneficial to those that are maybe sober curious or want to take a look at their own lifestyles. You probably heard in the news within the last week or two that the Surgeon General has recommended putting labels on alcohol in regards to the risks of cancer, just like we have on cigarettes. I think this is a wonderful idea. Again, it's not the Surgeon General telling you to avoid alcohol, to change your lifestyle around. But it is known fact that alcohol can cause the risk of certain cancers. You can find any of those articles online, and I think it's just a good idea to have on there. Believe it or not, many people were unaware that alcohol caused or causes cancer. It's a known carcinogen, just as smoking cigarettes, just as asbestos, radiation. 75 million U.S. adults will be taking part in dry January this year. That is an astonishing number, and I think it's great for people to do a little reset, to see how it feels to not consume alcohol for 31 days, if they make it that far. There'll be a handful of people that continue on past January, maybe go through February or March. There'll be others that are okay after 31 days and go back to their normal drinking habits, and that's great for them. I don't need to run through all the science, all the facts that exist. I will share a couple ways and things for you to learn on your own. If you are interested in learning more of the science, I highly recommend checking out Andrew Huberman's podcast episode, What Alcohol Does to Your Body, Brain, and Health. He recorded this a few years ago as part of his Huberman Lab podcast. I think the episode's close to 2 hours, but it's really eye-opening. I don't follow a lot of his episodes, particularly because they're very long and I have other ways to spend my time. But this episode, I know, is one of his most popular, and I have actually listened to it a couple times over the years, and I found it very fascinating. Now, if you're looking for other podcasts to listen to that are in that sober, curious, or dry, or non-alcohol realm, I will recommend a couple to you right now. The first one is one of my favorites. It's called Sober Awkward. Hamish and Vic are the two hosts. They are based out of Australia. It is a look at alcohol in a very comical way. So Vic and Hamish share their stories of sobriety, and they answer a lot of questions in their episodes that people may be feeling on their own, but are either too afraid to ask or they're not quite sure what sobriety would look like. Another plug on a podcast is for one of the nicer people in the sober Instagram community that I have conversed with, and that is Happiest Sober. And the host of that is Madeline Forrest. It's a great podcast. She shares her experiences throughout her sobriety journey. And she's just very uplifting and kind, and it's motivating for those of you that are interested or wanting to take a look at your own patterns and knowing that life does not end if you choose to give up alcohol. But instead of telling you why you should consider cutting back, I'll give you an overview of how things have gone for me since I quit drinking 8 months ago. Some of the benefits and wins include no hangovers. That is my favorite part. In the past, on average, Thursday or Friday or Saturday, I'd have at least 4 drinks or more, which technically put me in the binge drinking range. Sometimes the next day, I'd feel slightly fuzzy. Other times, worse. Not so good whatsoever. But not anymore. I wake up each weekend day feeling so well rested. That coffee after a good night's sleep is incredible. I know in the past I had used coffee when nursing a hangover. That would help at times, but the feeling of having it when you don't have a headache is far greater. As far as sleep goes, overall sleep is great throughout the week. Yes, there's times I wake up tired, as anyone might. That's most likely because I went to bed later than I wanted to, or I was preoccupied on my phone before bed, and that messes with your sleep. But I get as many REMs as needed for the most part. There's no passing out, no blacking out. I wake up where I fell asleep in my bed, not on the couch. I keep track of my sleep on my Fitbit and the app, and looking back at days last year and in the past where I had been drinking, the sleep score I would have, in the 60s versus what I get now on average in the mid 80s. The highest I've gotten, I think, is a 91. I don't know how to get any higher than that. I feel I sleep pretty well, but again, those are, I don't know how well baked in science those are, but I know that when I get plenty of light sleep, REM sleep, and deep sleep, that I know I have slept well. And I generally get between 7 and 8 hours of sleep each night. That's what my body needs. Now, socially, things are way better in this aspect as well. When I do go, quote unquote, out, I remember conversations I had. I don't start slurring my words. I can drive my car home without any regret or nervousness about getting pulled over. And I say regret because myself and many others have definitely driven a vehicle when they shouldn't have. Again, so I don't have any of that regret the next day. I'm not nervous when I'm driving, and that's a really good feeling as well. As far as bars and restaurants go, they are really starting to come around with their non-alcoholic options. I'd say around 60% of the places I have gone to within the last couple of years, and we'll say even in the last 8 months, because things are getting better. They started to pick up really in 2024 with offerings. But the 60% of these establishments include some really good NA beer options. That's not only variety, but the quality as well. also offering mocktails in addition to those NA beers. The other 40%, I would say, have done somewhat limited effort and just stock one or two generic NA beers that aren't really good. But it's an improvement. You can go to a bar or restaurant and find more than just O'Doul's and Klausthaller, both which are not good in comparison to the huge variety that is available, especially or specifically online, but also in grocery and liquor stores. You're going to have the best variety by looking online. But again, the amount of non-alcoholic options I see at like Total Wine is pretty incredible here in 2025. Regarding fitness, I never have to skip a workout because I'm too hungover or I'm not feeling well the next day. While I generally eat nutritiously, I am much more apt to have a slice of cake or some cookies because I know I won't be saving those calories for alcohol like I used to. There always had to be room for booze calories, so skipping treats was easy. Except until I started drinking, then dieting went out the window. But just tying in fitness and nutrition together, they go hand in hand because I'd wake up hungover and I'd eat like crap the next day, those greasy foods to make myself feel better. That would throw off my workout that day, possibly the day after that. And that really can put a wrench in your routine if you are one who likes to keep up with your exercise and nutrition on a daily basis. Before we wrap things up, 5 questions. Number 1, what can I do to support my family or friends who have decided to cut back or quit? The easy answer is provide some non-alcoholic options. While I like to generally bring my own stuff if I'm going somewhere, so I'm not sure that they're going to have those options. If you know that someone is coming over for a party or a gathering and you know that they don't consume alcohol, feel free to send them a text and say, hey, is there something I can grab for you? Or you're welcome to bring your own so that they feel included. Don't give them grief. It's their choice to not consume alcohol and has nothing to do with you. Number 2, why don't you just moderate like a normal person? Can't you have just 1 or 2? Moderate. Why didn't I think of that? Number 3, I heard drinking in moderation, for example, a glass of wine is good for cholesterol. No, that's incorrect. Now, I think majority of people know about this, that this was advice given many, many, many years ago, and it's been debunked on multiple levels. The amount of wine you'd have to drink for it to improve your cholesterol, would be negated by the negative aspect of drinking that much wine in the first place. So if your doctor's still telling you that in 2025, you may want to question why they're giving you that advice. Number 4, non-alcoholic beers don't make sense. Some of them have 0.5%, and that's something. This is a silly argument. You know what else contains up to 0.5% alcohol? Bananas, fruit juice, kombucha, vinegar, yogurt, mustards. In order for you to get quote unquote drunk on NA beer, which is not possible, and that by drunk I'm saying the 0.08%, which is the legal driving limit in all 50 states, a 120-pound woman would need to drink 42 in an hour. Someone heavier would have to drink a hell of a lot more than that. Number 5. What if I like to drink and don't really care about all of this? Works for me. It's your life, and you can do as you please. I'm a former drinker and know what that's all about. It's your life. Enjoy it how you'd like. There's no shame in this podcast. We're all adults. All can make our own choices. I have just found that the positives of not consuming alcohol have outweighed the negatives. And so that is one of my main reasons for not consuming alcohol anymore. To close things out, while we often say life is short on here, the thought is usually how it's important to enjoy it as much as possible. Some might hear that and think, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Or, well, life is short, let's party. And while those are cute little phrases, our time on earth truly is limited. And personally, I'd like to be present for it as much of it as I can. I want to spend my days productively without relying on a social crutch. I like the motivation of being able to do whatever I want, whenever I want, without having the pull of alcohol over my head. With, should I drink tonight? Maybe just a couple? That's not a thought process for me anymore. And with that, there's no guilt. And to follow those two questions up, one was never enough, right? I'd have one or two. That would lead to 3 or 4, and sometimes more. Aside from wanting to live long, I want to be healthy as well. While I could get hit by a train tomorrow, and that'd be the end of it, I don't live my life that way. I plan to be healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally as I get into the twilight years. And just because someone enters their 80s or 90s doesn't automatically give you a sentence for poor health. If you have further questions on the Sober Curious lifestyle or comments, feel free to reach out and follow me on my Instagram. It's Later Than You Think podcast. You can also find me on 414_Milwaukee on Instagram. Feel free to subscribe, share on your social media, tell your friends, and tune in next time. Have a good one.